The road less traveled. There are some roads you travel because you have to reach a destination, and then there are roads you travel simply because you want to see what is waiting around the next bend. Today we are taking one of those roads. Our journey begins from Mawain, heading towards Sabah Al Azzah. And honestly, this is not just a road, it feels like an entrance into another side of the mountains, a side that many travelers pass without ever noticing. Look around you. The mountains are rising on both sides. The road is moving quietly through the landscape, sometimes opening into a wide view, and sometimes becoming surrounded by mountains, trees, and farms. And that is what makes this journey special. There is no huge city skyline here, no crowded tourist street, no endless line of shops. Instead, there are mountains, farms, small houses, green valleys, and villages that seem to be hiding quietly between the hills. This is the kind of place where you don't want to drive fast, you want to slow down, you want to open the window, you want to look at the mountains, and most importantly, you want to ask yourself one simple question: how many people know that places like this exist? Welcome to another journey with Travel with Noor. Today, we are leaving the busy roads behind and entering a quieter world, a world of mountains, agriculture, traditional homes, and hidden villages. Our destination is Sabah Al Azzah, but the destination is not really the story. The road is the story, the people are the story, the landscape is the story, and perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is what we discover along the way. As we continue from Mawain, the landscape begins to change. The road is surrounded by mountains, and every few minutes the view gives us something different. One moment we are looking at a rocky mountain wall, then suddenly the road opens, and there it is, green, a beautiful patch of vegetation sitting against the mountains. This contrast is something I always love about the mountains of southwestern Saudi Arabia. You can see rock and greenery together, dry mountain slopes beside cultivated land, old-looking homes beside modern roads, nature beside human life. And this combination gives the landscape its own personality. The mountains are not just scenery, they have shaped the lives of the people who live here. Think about it. When people build communities in mountainous areas, they cannot simply live the same way people live on flat land. They have to understand the mountain, they have to understand water, they have to understand the seasons, they have to understand where crops can grow, and they have to understand how to build a home that can survive the environment. For generations, mountain communities throughout Asir developed their lives around exactly these realities. The landscape became part of their culture, the mountain became part of their identity, and the farm became part of their daily life. So when we look at a green field today, we should not see only plants. We should imagine the work behind it. Someone prepared the soil, someone carried water, someone planted, someone waited, someone harvested, and probably someone learned all of this from their father or grandfather. That is how agricultural knowledge survives, not always through books. Sometimes it survives through people. Now look carefully at the farms around the road. This is one of the most beautiful parts of the journey. The green fields appear almost unexpectedly between the mountains, and that is what makes them so beautiful. You are surrounded by rugged terrain, and then suddenly you see a small agricultural area. It almost looks like a green island inside a mountain sea. For someone visiting this region for the first time, this can be surprising. You might think, how can agriculture exist here? But mountain communities have always been experts at making use of the land available to them. Where there is soil, they cultivate. Where there is water, they grow. Where there is a suitable slope, they adapt. And where the land is difficult, they find another way. This is one of the lessons of mountain life. People don't wait for perfect conditions. They learn how to live with the conditions they have. And maybe that is why these farms feel different. They don't look like enormous commercial agricultural fields. They feel connected to the homes around them. A farm, a house, a small road, a few trees, perhaps animals. And behind everything in the mountains, this is a landscape created slowly, not in 1 year, not in one generation, but over decades and generations. And when you drive through it, you are looking at the result of that relationship between people and land. When you see an old house sitting on a slope, don't just think old building. Think about the people who once opened that door. Think about the children who grew up there. Think about the meals prepared inside. Think about guests sitting together. Think about families watching the same mountains we are watching today. The building may become old, but the memories connected to it can be much older. And perhaps this is why old villages have a special feeling. Modern buildings can be beautiful, but old homes have stories. There is another story hidden inside this landscape: water. Without water, the green farms would not exist. This is something we sometimes forget when we look at beautiful agricultural scenery. Greenery looks natural, but farming requires work. Mountain agriculture requires even more understanding. Where does the water come from? How is it collected? How is it distributed? When is the land planted? When is it harvested? These questions have been part of agricultural life for generations. Water has always been precious in dry regions, And wherever people successfully established farms, they had to develop ways of managing this precious resource. So when you see a green field here, remember the invisible story underneath it: water, soil, labor, knowledge, time, and patience. The beauty we see from the car window is the final result of all of these things working together. Let's slow down for a moment. No music, just listen. The sound of the tires, the wind, maybe birds, maybe the sound of a nearby farm. This is something we sometimes lose when we travel. We are always recording, always talking, always checking the phone. But sometimes the best travel experience is simply watching. The mountain doesn't need a caption. The road doesn't need an explanation. The clouds don't need editing. Nature is already doing the work, and this road has a rhythm. You climb, you descend, you turn, you see a farm, you see a house. The mountain gets closer. Then suddenly the valley opens again. It feels almost like the road is telling its own story, and every bend gives us another sentence. One thing I always think about when traveling through villages is the people, because landscapes can be beautiful. But without people, a landscape is only a landscape. People give a place its identity. The farmers, the families, the elderly people who remember the old days, the children growing up between farms and mountains, the workers maintaining the land, the people who continue traditions without even realizing they are preserving history. Imagine an elderly farmer sitting outside his home. Maybe he has watched the road change. Maybe he remembers when the journey between villages took much longer. Maybe he remembers older farming methods. Maybe he remembers relatives who lived in houses that are now empty. We often think history belongs to museums, but sometimes history is sitting quietly outside a village house, and if we don't listen, those stories can disappear. That is why travel documentaries matter, not because we need to make every place famous, but because we can help people notice places that deserve appreciate. The mountains of Asir have witnessed centuries of change. The region's history includes local rulers, tribal communities, agricultural settlements, and struggles for political control. During the 19th century, Asir became involved in conflicts connected with Ottoman and Egyptian expansion into the southwestern Arabian Peninsula. Historical records describe local Assyri leaders and communities resisting outside military campaigns, including the forces associated with Muhammad Ali Pasha. Later, the region became part of the political transformation that eventually brought much of the Arabian Peninsula under the modern Saudi state. But when we talk about these big historical events, we should remember the smaller picture. The political struggle in a history book may sound very distant, but people lived through those times. Farmers still had to work, families still needed food, children still grew up, people still traveled between villages, life continued while history was changing around them. That is what makes mountain history fascinating. The mountains remain while generations change. There is something special about roads that connect smaller communities. They don't always have the fame of major tourist routes, but they show you real life. You see farms, you see local houses, you see people moving through their daily routine, you see mountains without a tourist crowd, and you see the landscape as residents see it. For a traveler, that can be much more meaningful than simply checking famous places off a list, because travel isn't always about saying, I went there. Sometimes it is about saying, I saw something I didn't expect. The mountains remain while generations change. There is something special about roads that connect smaller communities. They don't always have the fame of major tourist routes, but they show you real life. You see farms, you see local houses, you see people moving through their daily routine, you see mountains without a tourist crowd, and you see the landscape as residents see it. For a traveler, that can be much more meaningful than simply checking famous places off a list, because travel isn't always about saying, I went there. Sometimes it is about saying, I saw something I didn't expect, and this road gave us that feeling. The green farms, the mountain views, the hidden homes, the quiet villages, the changing elevation. Every few minutes, something new. Now we are coming closer to another beautiful section. Look at the farmhouse surrounded by greenery with the mountain behind it. This is one of those views where you almost want to stop the car and just stand there. Imagine waking up here. Imagine opening your door in the morning, and instead of seeing traffic and tall buildings, you see mountains, you see fields, you see trees, you hear birds, you feel the cool mountain air. For many people, this kind of life may look simple, but simplicity can be a luxury. In modern cities, we spend money to escape noise. Here, silence is already part of the landscape. We travel hundreds of kilometers searching for peaceful places, and sometimes peace is waiting quietly in a small mountain village. Saudi Arabia is often presented to the world through its deserts, but Saudi Arabia is much more diverse than that. There are mountains, green valleys, farms, forests, coastal areas, historic villages, and landscapes that can completely change within a few hours of driving. The southwest especially gives us a different picture, and journeys like Al Mawain to Sabah Al Azzah help reveal that diversity. This is why I love road travel. A plane can take you to a destination quickly, but a road lets you watch the transformation. You see the landscape changing slowly, you understand the distance, you notice small villages, you discover roads that never appear in typical tourist videos, and sometimes the road becomes more memorable than the destination. Let's imagine for a moment that this road could speak. What would it tell us? Maybe it would say, I have seen generations pass. I have watched children become parents. I have watched farms change. I have watched old houses become empty. I have watched new roads arrive. I have watched people leave their villages and return. I have watched the mountains remain. That is the strange beauty of landscapes. People change, technology changes, vehicles change, roads change, but mountains can remain almost exactly where they have always been. And when you stand here, you become part of a very long story. Your journey may last 1 hour, but the landscape existed long before you arrived, and hopefully, it will still be here long after we leave. Now we are getting closer to Sabah Al Azzah, and as the road continues, the feeling changes again. We are no longer simply passing through a beautiful mountain landscape. We are approaching a community, a place where people live, a place where farms have meaning, a place where roads connect homes. And this is where I want to remind you of something. Don't judge a village by its size. A small village can have a huge history. A small farm can support a family for generations. A small road can connect people who have known each other for decades. And a simple mountain view can stay in your memory for years. That is the beauty of hidden places. They don't need to be famous to be important. They only need to be real. And finally, we come to the end of today's journey. From Al Mawain, through the mountains, past green farms, around hidden villages, along beautiful mountain roads, towards Sabah Al Azzah. What did we find? We found greenery. We found mountains. We found farms. We found quiet roads. We found hidden homes. But more importantly, we found a different way of seeing Saudi Arabia. A Saudi Arabia that is not only skyscrapers and highways, a Saudi Arabia of mountains, a Saudi Arabia of villages, a Saudi Arabia of farmers, a Saudi Arabia of old roads and new roads, a Saudi Arabia where history is still visible in the landscape. And maybe this is the real meaning of travel. Travel is not just about reaching a place. Travel is about noticing the small things. The farmhouse beside the road, the tree growing on the mountain, the old wall, the hidden village, the farmer working in the field, the road disappearing around the mountain. These small details become memories. So if you ever travel through this part of the region, don't rush. Slow down, look around, take a deep breath, and allow the mountains to tell you their story. This is Travel with Noor, and today, the road was our destination. Until the next journey, keep traveling, keep discovering, and never stop looking for the hidden beauty around you. Allah Hafiz.